Hey there, this is Faisal. I wanted to do a video on one of the most important aspects of your life, and I'm going to put it in a question form. Have you begun to accept and love your life for what it is before you begin to change it for what you think is better, or for what you think is a better life? Now, it will sound like a very counterintuitive idea because a lot of us believe or think that the only reason I'm changing my life is because it's horrible to begin with, and that's what gives me the motivation to change it. Maybe that motivation can come from that negative intention, or the intention that it's horrible and I'm going to change it. That's fine. That's pretty straightforward. But I want to give you another perspective on it, and the reason why I don't like that way of looking at it is because it might work in the short term, and you probably have heard people say there's positive stress and there's negative stress. Actually, your body processes stress, which equals to fear, in the same exact way. There is no difference. While in the short term, sometimes you can motivate yourself based on your stress levels or fear of not getting something to do something, but in the long run, it creates problems in your system if you continue that. Now, I'll go into detail in that. So, what do I mean by accept and love your life for what it is? Let me tell you a story. I'll start with a story. So start a little light, and that's about my daughter. And she was only a few months old, and this is a lesson I learned when we were going through that time, and I'm not sure how old she was, but I think maybe 5 months, 4 months, 6 months, something like that. And she went to a family friend's house, and they had a dog, and either the dog licked her hand, or she touched the dog, and she touched her eyes. And what ended up happening was that it looked like she had an eye infection. And what generally happens, I'm pretty sure that was an eye infection, but generally happens is that whenever she would, and I'm pretty sure she had pain, it's just that she didn't have a way of expressing that at that time. But whenever she would go to sleep, and when she woke up, she would have this gooey cyst that would form on her eyelashes, and she literally couldn't open her eyes. And some mornings I would get up, and I would freak out myself because she can't open her eyes even though she's awake. And what we did was we used tea bags, which is supposed to actually help with black tea bags with that infection. And it actually did help. You would wet it in warm water, dip it in warm water, and clean that gooey cyst thing from her eyes. And while I was doing that, it would take at least a minute or two for me to do that, maybe even longer. And her eyes would be closed, but I wouldn't hear crying or anything. She was completely calm and just awake and aware. She didn't cry. She didn't resist. Nothing happened, and I was freaking out more than her. In that process, that happened multiple times. It took a few days for the infection to go away. What I learned from that experience was that if an adult went through that, especially an adult who was very reactionary and didn't really accept the situation for what it was, then they would freak out. And I was actually freaking out even though I wasn't going through that, obviously, because it's my child, I care. But I was actually imagining myself, if I was going through this, it would be hard for me to not be able to open my eyes and just wait for a few minutes for it to, and not even knowing whether or not it'll clear up. So the fact that she was so accepting of what it was, and she was so calm, it actually made it easier for me to clean her eyes and for all that stuff to go out of her eye, and she could open her eyes. Now, that's one aspect of it, and that's something that a lot of people have a very hard time dealing with. So imagine you have or you probably do, if you have a relationship challenge or a health challenge or a personal challenge related to your thoughts, or business challenge or financial problem, and that's a difficult situation. I've been in all those, and when you're dealing with that, for most people, it's very hard to accept things for what it is. accept the situation for what it is. It's a challenging situation and we're dealing with it. So what most people do is they start thinking things. For example, they're going through a tough situation, financial, and they'll be like, what if I'm in this situation forever? And they ask the wrong question, and their brain gives you more wrong answers. And you start to freak out, and you get thought after thought after thought, and keeps getting, the quality of thoughts keep getting worse and worse and worse. So that resistance creates a negative chain of thinking and feeling that puts you in a more negative situation. So why is that important? I mean, it's negative, so that should motivate you to go towards positive. Yes, it should, but generally the case is, and I work with people on a consistent basis, a lot of people just get stuck in that state just because they're so focused on the negative aspect of their life that they can't see which way to go. And we know this biologically, because if you're so focused on the negative and you do this on a long-term basis, that actually lowers your thinking ability. That actually lowers your conscious ability to solve problems in your life. And we know this through studies within lower socioeconomic levels for people who live in poverty and they're in survival mode. That actually drops their IQ, statistically speaking. And that's not a good thing, because you need your conscious mind to be able to think about situations critically, rather than jumping and reacting to situations, which a lot of people do. And if you didn't know, a lot of crime is related to poverty. We think that crime is a negative or evil thing, but it actually isn't. It's an effect of a situation where people have to survive, so they do whatever they can to deal with their situation, and that might lead to lots of crime in a situation. So if you want to reduce poverty, you need to create programs that increases the ability for people to take positive action in their life, or give them more resources, or do, and those things are very complicated. But the point being is that if we are facing a difficult situation, if most of our focus is on the negative side of it, instead of accepting it for what it is, it's a challenge that we need to deal with. And the more chatter we have in our head towards making up stories about where it could go, and they're not really true, the worse it gets. So that's your resistance to your life, and that could be in any situation. So then, how do you accept it? Well, at the end of this video, I'm going to give you a technique to not only accept but love your life for what it is. So let's talk about the second aspect of it. One is acceptance, the other one is love. One is not resisting, the other one is looking at the positive aspects of your life. No matter what situation you're going through, whether it's your health problem, relationship problem, or financial problem, or business problem, whatever it is, I can bet that you can find a few things that are going positive for you. And you might not feel that in this moment, but if you start thinking about them, you will. Like I said, I'm going to share that technique with you at the end, and it's a very simple technique, and you can use it in your day-to-day life. Actually, you can use two techniques I'll share with you. So if you're in a challenging situation, let's say you have a problem with you're going through a tough time in your relationship. If you completely focus on that challenging situation, then all you're going to notice, or most of what you're going to notice, is that. And what happens? That affects your body, that affects your thinking, that affects how you feel, and you won't be in a state to come up with solutions. And that's very important, that you need a clear mind to be able to come up with solutions. That's why much of the coaching is, whenever I'm going through with clients, is getting them to think about their life in a different way by asking them questions that direct their mind towards a more realistic or positive approach towards their life, because they're so stuck in their negative sometimes that they don't really see the positive aspects of their life. So one aspect of it is question and answer and dialogue between us, but the other aspect of it is giving them tools to be able to deal with it in a better way. So then, how do you do this? So this is where those two techniques come in. So number one, this is very simple. All you have to do is be aware of your breath. Whenever you go into a state of a negative state, you usually feel tension in your muscles, usually bigger muscles, your legs, your back, your arms. Sometimes you even feel physical pain in your back. depending on how severe your situation is and how chronic it is. So what you can do is become aware of your breath, and it sounds very simple, but it's very powerful. So the more aware you are of your breath, so you can actually consciously start breathing throughout the day multiple times, in through your nose, out through your mouth. Become aware of your breath, and while you're doing that, in that moment, focus on the tension in your body. Put your attention on and it sounds weird, but when you become aware of the tension in your body and you focus on your breathing, that actually releases a lot of that tension. You don't have to do anything. Just focus on your breathing and take 10 deep breaths and just move on. And do that multiple times a day. This is actually even more powerful than a official form of or formal form of meditation. So when you become aware of your breath multiple times a day, one, it stops your negative thinking, and two, you become more aware of your state that you're in, because a lot of people are in such a negative state that they don't even become aware of the tension in their muscles and body. And whenever you have tension in your muscles, that means that you're in a state of fight or flight. That means you're in a negative state, in a fearful state. And unless you come out of that, you're not going to be able to think more clearly. So do that. That's one technique. Second one, this will take a little bit of effort, but this is what I want you to do. As soon as you wake up, within the first hour of your day, take a pen or paper. You can create a journal. This is called a gratitude journal. It's very simple. All you have to write is, I feel grateful for my family. I mean, these are examples. I feel grateful for my health. I feel grateful for my relationships. I feel grateful for my ability to work. I feel grateful for all the opportunities in my life, whatever it is. So just sit down with a pen and paper for 5 minutes. Just write down all the things that you feel grateful for, or whatever comes to mind. And this doesn't mean that you have to be grateful for things. This is not an obligation. I just want you to try it as an experiment. You don't have to take my word for any of these. Give it a try and see how you feel, because the feeling is almost immediate once you go through this. So what happens is, when you write, I feel grateful for so and so, it begins to shift your attention towards the positive aspects of your life. And when you're going through a tough time, it's very, very difficult to notice the positive aspects of your life. And this might take some work if you're doing that. And by the way, this is an amazing practice whether you are going through a challenging time or not. The more you do this, the more you prepare your mind and body to be able to deal with those challenging times, but also it helps you to grow more. So 5 minutes every morning, that's all you have to do. Write that down and that's it. And you will immediately feel, and if you don't feel it one time, 2 times, give it at least 3-4 times and you will feel it. And then you try the breathing in through your nose, out through your mouth multiple times a day. So those techniques, very simple, but they work wonders. And I'll give you one experiment that Dr. Daniel Amen did with SPECT scans of his patients' brains. And he worked with a psychologist. He's a psychiatrist who actually pioneered the study of the brain through SPECT scans. And his book, Change Your Brain, Change Your Life, he got people to meditate for 5, 10, 15 minutes of that's actually a type of meditation. You can write your things you're grateful for, but what I just said. And so they actually got them to just think about it, and then they took a scan of their brain, and there was a discernible difference in the activity of the brain, and it went much more towards the positive than the negative. So and we can measure this. So it's not just a woo-woo thing, a spiritual thing, even though it is a very powerful spiritual practice. It has basis in your biology. So the more you practice this on a regular basis, the more positive you will feel about your life. So why is all this important? The reason, like I mentioned, is important is because when you're in an accepting and loving state within your life, you are in a much better state to create solutions in your life. You're in a much better state to notice the solutions in your life. As one of my favorite researchers, I forget his name. He's my favorite, but I always forget his name. Earl Nightingale. I love that guy. So he's one of the older personal development teachers. He said that there are more opportunities in your environment than you can take advantage of in a lifetime. And that is so true, because what you notice is when you become open to opportunities, when you become more positive, when you become more aware of your environment, you begin to notice things that you never noticed before. And that's where opportunities come from. When you're in a negative state, all you're noticing is you go into this tunnel vision, all you're noticing is the negative in your life. So once again, don't take my word for it. Give this a try. Give yourself a challenge of a week, a month, 20 days, 30 days, whatever it takes. Give it a try for a length of time, and you will see that it makes a tangible difference in your life. So if you have any questions, any comments about this video, please post those comments below. And let me ask you this. Which way do you think is better? Do you think being in a stressful, negative state is better to go towards a positive life? Or do you think it's better to be in a positive state, accepting and loving state, to go towards a positive life, or towards a life that you think is better? In any case, make sure you share this video with somebody that you think might benefit from this, your friend, family, your sister, brother, whoever might benefit from this video. Until my next video, have an amazing day. Bye.